As he said, I'm Mike Walters, Executive Director of Southwestern Illinois Employers Association. I'm also County Board member. I've been there for 10 years. I was 6 years at trustee in Godfrey before that. Come from a line of politicians and lobbyists. My father was elected in 1970. He went in with a gentleman by the name of Mike Madigan, who I'm sure you have seen a few commercials mentioning Mike Madigan.
A lot of postcards about him.
Mike, as a matter of fact, my dad and Mike Madigan are friends. They don't exchange postcards, but they do talk quite a bit. When my dad goes up to Springfield, they will chit-chat for a little bit. So, my brother is a lobbyist. He worked for the Secretary of State, and he now works for Caterpillar. So, I'm the second person elected in the family, and as I said, I've been doing it for 16 years. Chris asked me to go over what's kind of going on in Madison County. Madison County, you can look at it either two ways. You can look at it as Kirk Prenzler's side or Alan Dunstan's side. I'm not going to tell you which side I'm on because that's not what I'm here. But I'm somewhere more in the middle. I kind of feel we're doing pretty good. I think we've done fairly well at keeping taxes down. Are there things we could do better? Yes. I think there's a lot of things that we could cut out. I think there's a few things that we could do better getting information out to the people. I think that we've opened up our checkbooks. I don't think we've opened it up quite enough. I think some stuff goes on there that I don't really like. I go to a committee and all of a sudden they go, here, we need this. Well, why am I just getting this today? What's it for? Well, person in that particular job's not here today, and we don't have anybody to explain it. Well, then I will immediately say whether it's for. It doesn't matter who it's for. I say, well, I'm not voting for it. And I usually get one or two people, and then all of a sudden, somebody from that department will come running into the room and explain to us what's going on. And it happens with all of them, not just one side or the other. Do I think we work well? We work much better than what's happening in Springfield and Washington. Do we have our differences? Yes. Do we have partisans on both sides? Yes. Do the vast majority of us work together? Yes. That's the nice thing about being on the county board. You can talk to anybody, you can say anything, and you don't have to worry about it coming back and all of a sudden it's in a commercial, it's on a postcard, it's something hitting and saying, well, Mike Walters said this. Okay? Now you're sick of the commercials. How many of them actually watch any of the commercials? Anybody read the nice 8x10 flyers that you get?
No.
Every day, you get 3 of them.
You get 3 of them every day. I'm here to tell you, tear them up, throw them away.
Yeah.
As Chris said, I'm Executive Director of SIA. I'm a lobbyist. I'm up in Springfield almost every day they're in session. Everything I've read, everything I've seen are, now you can't say they're lies, but they stretch the truth. And for me, it doesn't matter whose side you're on. My association backs all the incumbents. So do I know a lot of the people running against the incumbents? Yes, and they've asked me for my support. I say no. I back the incumbent. I will tell you what goes on up in Springfield, but I'm not going to help you. So I explained to them what's going on in Springfield. We have, right now in Madison County, we have 2 countywide offices up. I mean, there's 6, but there's 2 that have races. We have the state's attorney, Tom Gibbons, is the incumbent running against Ron Williams. And then the other one is Alan Dunstan running against Kirk Prenzler. You don't hear much about Tom Gibbons and Ron Williams because those 2 are pretty much straight shooters. They do their jobs. They're not going to come out and be political on an issue that really should be political. State's attorney should not. In my mind, it shouldn't be a Republican, Democrat. That's an office that should just be elected countywide, and it should not be a party. I feel the same way about the judges. I think the judges, we have 23 total judges, and we have 1 elected Republican, 1 appointed Republican, and 21 Democrats. To me, I don't care what side you're on. If you go up to DuPage County, it's just the opposite. 20-something Republicans, 2 Democrats. To me, that's another system that has to change. Has nothing to do with politics, but you see so much about them. And in my mind, you have campaign finance reform, where they say businesses aren't allowed to give money to legislators because what do the legislators do? They make laws. It's okay for unions and okay for trial lawyers, but not for businesses. To me, that's a little wrong. It's okay if you're an attorney and you go in front of a judge 25 times a year to give him $100,000 for his campaign. But they say there's nothing wrong with that. I have a problem with that. To me, judges, state's attorney's office should not have nothing to do with political parties. It should just be, put your name out here, here's what I've done, this is what I can do. That should be the extent of it. There shouldn't be a lot of money in it because, trust me, judges nowadays are as political as legislators are. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on, they're political. And we are, unfortunately, on a list called judicial hellhole. People say, well, I had to debate our Chief Justice, Ann Callis, about 5 years ago on this, and she said, well, we're on that, and she goes, who runs that? I said, I don't know who runs it. She goes, businesses. I said, okay, businesses run the association that ran the judicial hellhole. Who's a judicial hellhole? Why are judicial hellholes? Well, we are because we have asbestos cases that don't belong here because we have them coming in from other states, other parts of the country that have nothing to do with Madison County. So they shouldn't be. We were on it many years ago because we were well known for giving out outrageous decisions on injuries and things like that. We've kind of cleaned that up, so we do look a little bit better that way, but we've got to get rid of these asbestos dockets. Now, they go, well, how can you say that? The person in charge of that is a Republican. I said, that sounds good, but isn't he an associate? Yeah. What happens in 2 years from now? He comes up for retention. Who votes on him? The 9 elected judges. What are you going to do if he throws all these cases out in 2 years? You know what, young man? You're not doing your job. You're gone. So, you got a young guy in his 30s, 40s now, so he's not that young, doing a job knowing that if I do what's right, I lose my job in 2 years. So to me, that's wrong. If you feel he should be thrown out, throw him out. Now, they've all come up, well, we've got this, we've got this, we've got that, give me all these reasons. I'm like, I don't buy it. But back to Ann Callis, I said, Ann, you're right, businesses do contribute from all over the country, not Madison County. I said, so what's the big deal? She goes, well, the businesses see this and they pick. I said, so what you're saying is all these businesses from around the country just drew Madison County in Southwestern Illinois and said, you're a judicial hellhole. I said, this money doesn't come from Madison County. Most of this money comes from outside of this area and around the country. I said, so I don't agree with you that it's the money. And I said, let me ask you a question. In the asbestos docket, I said, do you know that they tried to pass a law out in Washington, D.C. to help these asbestos people that were wronged and get their money? Rather than going through all these trials, they'll give out the money. And she was, yeah. I said, do you know who fought that? No. I said, the trial lawyers in Madison County gave millions and millions of dollars to defeat that. I said, you know why? Chief Judge. No, why? I said, because when they settle a case in Madison County, they get 33 1/3%. This law was only going to give the attorney 6%. I said, so you want to talk about crooked and what's wrong with the country? I said, you have people that were wronged, and all I hear from you guys is we want to make them whole again, but we want to take 1/3 of what they get as opposed to 6% of what they're getting. So, to me, our judicial system needs to be corrected. You know, Kurt and Alan, they're both right, they're both wrong. What you're seeing, what they're putting out against each other is not, in my mind, is not true. I've read about the bonds. I've talked to people that do this for a living. I've had people go, I can explain Kurt's side of it, I can explain Alan's side of it. I said, so they're both right. And he said, well, really, they're both wrong, but that's the problem. You hear a lot of stuff, you see a lot of stuff, you see Kurt hitting on this, you see Alan hitting on this, and you know, that's what they do. I will say this, When those two are together in a room, they're very professional, they're very polite to each other. As a matter of fact, both of them at different times have said, you know, he's a good opponent. So they are both very professional. Most people that you elect in Madison County, in my mind, are very professional. They do the job. Are some of them partisan? Yes. Are some of them not telling the Republicans everything? Yes. But are the Republicans always telling the Democrats everything? No. So it's, when I first got on there, it was great, except for really it was one side got everything, and then we got a few more people came on, and then now we started butting heads. And it's gotten ugly, but what we've done is some of the people that are a little this way or a little that way, we've reined them in. So we see some good debate on the county board, on the floor. Sometimes they don't like it because what they say is, well, you should go to the committee. I said, I have a full-time job. I have 4 committees that I have to go to each month. I can't just jump in my car for 13 committees every month and sit in a meeting for an hour and a half and attend them all. I said, most county board members can't do that. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of the county board members that make 1 or 2 meetings a month because of their jobs. Now, if it's a Republican, the Democrats can appoint that out in the election and vice versa. To me, if you got a full-time job, it is hard to make these meetings. So if I see somebody's only made half of them, a lot of people go, that's terrible, that's awful. Well, you know, he or she has a full-time job. They are stepping up, they are doing their jobs. And I don't hold you responsible if you're doing a full-time job and you can't make, I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot, but for me, it's a 30-minute trip there. The meeting's an hour to an hour and a half and 30 minutes back to my office. So you're looking at 8 to 10 hours a week and or a month, and most people work 160. So you're almost gone 10% of the time if you really make every meeting. So I don't agree with that. The money that comes into politics, do I think it's wrong? I believe in the First Amendment, and I think that if Chris can only give me $5, but Patty can give my opponent $100, there's nothing wrong with that. To me, that's their freedom of speech. It's like I live in a subdivision, and I used to put up political signs. I was told you can't do that. So I went to the judge in Madison County, and he said, no, that's a violation of your First Amendment. I said, oh, okay. So I am fortunate enough to know Judge Lloyd Carmeier, the new Chief Justice for the Illinois Supreme Court. And I called him, and he said, no, they can't do that, Mike, that's unconstitutional. So the head of our association came and said, you got to take those down. And I said, it's my First Amendment right. And he says, no, we've got a bylaw. And I explained to him that I've already talked to a judge, and the judge said it's unconstitutional. I said, so I have a problem with that, because then if you find somebody and then they go to move out and you want to take the money from them, they're going to sue the association. We're going to lose, and then we're going to have to pay their attorney fees plus our attorney fees. I said, we need to get rid of this law. He said, who'd you talk to? I said, a judge. He goes, oh, yeah, Madison County? I said, yeah. He goes, well, they're corrupt. I said, well, I talked to an Illinois Supreme Court justice. He said the same thing. He said, oh. But he doesn't take it out of the bylaws because he's the head of the association, so he's got power in his mind. So trying to think of a few other things that are going on there. Debbie Ming Mendoza, she is the county clerk, is a wonderful, wonderful person. Her and I have been friends even before she got the job. She's really taken that department and turned it around. I mean, she's really brought us out of the 70s. I mean, if you've ever tried to vote early about 4 years ago, you would go and you had to take a machine, and you'd have to go, like if you wanted to put my name's under Michael J. Walters, you'd have to turn this circle, go M, hit it, go to I, hit the button, go to C, hit the button, and you'd have to do this for everybody you voted for.
Sure.
Now, no offense, my dad's 86 years old. I couldn't imagine my dad trying to sit in there and vote for more than one person before he would just be like, the hell with this, I'm not doing this, I'm going to go home. And then he votes one time. So now it's like it is now. They print it, you go. I went to Lewis and Clark, gave them my voting right, my ID, which some people don't think we should use. And they called up my paperwork. I sat down just like I would my precinct, voted, put it into the machine, and it works great. So I give her a lot of credit. Rick Fast is a friend of mine. He was my 7th grade basketball coach and 8th grade basketball coach. In high school, I played soccer and tennis and started to play basketball and realized I wasn't good enough. So I blame Rick for why I'm not any good.
Yeah, Rick would take it.
Yeah, he would. Well, he does. I tell that story all the time. Now, some Republicans hate Rick. I get along with him wonderful. I've known him since I was in the 7th grade, so they're not happy that I'm friends with him. I'm friends with Kurt Prenzler. I knew Kurt before he ran. Some people hate me because I'm friends with Kurt Prenzler. So, to me, my dad has always taught me work with everybody. And a prime example is Ted Kennedy, couldn't be further this way, and Strom Thurmond couldn't be further this way. Best friends, went out to eat dinner every night. Never talked politics, but they were absolutely the best of friends. They ate dinner every night. To me, that's what politics is about. If I don't agree with Patty on an issue, I'm going to talk to her about it. I'm going to try to change her mind, give her my side of the story, and she's going to try to change my mind. And as soon as the conversation's over with, even if we got heated with each other, it's over with, it's done. Move on, we're still friends, so what, we don't agree. Too many people take it personal. And I mean, if you see some of the commercials, they are very personal. I can tell you again, they're all full of baloney. I watch them because I know all the people involved, and I just laugh at the commercials of what they say, because they'll take a clip of what somebody said and won't tell you the rest of the story, and then you hear the quip and you're like, well, that guy's a jerk. You've seen the Mike Bosch thing where he threw the paper in the air. Did anybody see this a few years ago when he ran for Congress? I was there. He stole that from Frank Watson, by the way. Frank Watson was the Senate minority leader, and they came out and gave him, this was how thick the budget was, 1 hour before they were supposed to vote on it. Frank goes out, he's talking about it, he's screaming, he throws it into the air. Now I know all the people that work, the staff members. This guy looked at the other one, he goes, I don't know about you, but I ain't picking that up. Go get one of the staffers over there, they can come get it. The other guy goes, I don't know what you're talking about. That's the only copy we have, and we got to make copies for all 59 of our legislators. So Frank got a little excited. So Mike was complaining. Mike's a friend of mine. Dan Beiser's a friend of mine. Bill Haynes' a friend of mine. I get along with all of them. And Mike's the most laid-back person you'd want to see. But in all fairness, if you know Mike Madigan's about one thing, being the speaker. He's a multi-millionaire. He does all the bonding for the state. He's waiting for that airport just south of Chicago that's going to be $4 billion. If he gets to do that, the bonding, it's 1% to 3% he gets for that. Second thing Mike Madigan does is he is if you want to fight your property taxes in Chicago, there's 2 law firms. Mike Madigan's. Does anybody know who's with the other one? No? Believe it or not, it is, oh God, I can't remember his first name. Daniels, he was the Republican side. Lee Daniels. Lee would get this much of the Chicago tax things, and Mike Madigan would get this. Guess what happens in Chicago if you haven't contributed to Mike Madigan's pension or his PAC money after a few years? Your taxes go through the roof. So you pay him one way or the other. Now, Pate Phillip was the Senate president, was the same way. Now he wasn't a lawyer, he didn't have what Mike Madigan had. But both of them, they don't like you, and nothing is going to come out of if you guys know how it works, you put a bill, it goes into rules, the Madigan or Cullerton determine if it comes out. You tick off Mike Madigan, none of your bills come out, and you get a primary opponent. You tick off Pate Phillips, none of your bills come out, you get a primary opponent. That's how it works up in Springfield. But thank goodness, I know I've kind of gone around in circles, Madison County doesn't work that way. We really don't. Do we have people that don't like each other? Yeah. But if we could just start bringing people together and work together, this state would be a lot better off. I don't know if you followed it, we're kind of at the bottom of everything. We are number 1, people leaving, unfortunately. We do lead in that, but the rest of them, I took some people to meet with Cullerton. One last story, I'll stop boring you. And to talk about workers' compensation. If you have a business, you know workers' compensation is killing you if you compare it to around the other states. We passed a law in 2011, which we went from 47th in the state to 43rd in workers' comp with the price. We were 43rd worst state in the country. And Cullerton kept asking everybody, what are you paying in taxes? Because what he was trying to say is that your taxes are so low you can afford workers' compensation. Well, what does that have to do with anything? That's apples and oranges. So I took a group up this past year, and there were 15 of us. I said, he's going to ask you what your taxes are. So everybody get your taxes ready, and we're going to go on and meet with him. Well, Cullerton, former comedian, knows how to work a room. He wasn't going to let anybody talk. He was going to talk the whole 20 minutes and then thank us and kick us out. I kept interrupting him. President Cullerton, hold on just a second. So then he goes, what's your taxes, everybody? And they all looked and they said, well, first of all, it's none of your business. And I looked at him and I said, you know, President Cullerton, they're right. It's none of your business what their taxes are. I'll say this, I will tell you this, I know what you're asking. You want to know what they're paying in tax to the state of Illinois. I said, but if you take their property taxes, their taxes they pay to the state, sales tax, this, that, the other thing, I said, we are higher than anybody around us. And he looked at us and he dropped his head because that was his whole argument. That our taxes are so low. He goes, well, yeah, we're the 9th highest taxed state in the country. I said, so, President Cullerton, not only are we terrible at workers' comp, we're terrible at taxes. What are we going to do? He didn't know. I mean, he can't. I will say this, President Cullerton, if he could get Madigan and he could get Rauner in a room, he could get something done. He's a little left, but he's more centered than Madigan is. And so that's kind of what I do for a living. I do like it. Most people think, God, you must hate it. There are days I do hate it, but most of the time I enjoy it. It is fun. You got to know how to deal with people. And that's my favorite thing. My best part is dealing with the secretaries. I'm smart enough, I was taught, if you take care of the secretaries, you can know anything. One last story, I said I wouldn't do this to you. But I take candy to the secretaries 4 times a year. I take about 20 boxes of turtles.
Smart man.
Yep.
And I hand them out to about 50 or 60 secretaries. And so what I do is I'll go up and I'll say, hey, Patty, what's Senator so-and-so doing with this bill? Oh, he's opposed to it. What can I do to change it? Oh, he's not going to change. One time, I went up and I said, Patty, where is he on this bill? He's for it. Oh, we need one vote to kill this bill. She goes, the secretary goes, come in here. So we go into the office, she shuts the door, she goes, he works on this committee for this organization. This bill will really hurt this business that he's on the board of. Talk to him about that. I said, okay. And so we walked out and she goes, talk to him next week. I don't want him, because everybody knows you and I went into a room. So the next week I went in and I asked him and he said, you know, I'm for it. I said, I go, here's the problem I have is there's businesses or associations like this. I don't know if you're on any of those boards. He goes, well, I'm on this one. I said, do you know what that's going to do to that board? He goes, what do you mean? I said, I'm not going to tell you, but go back and look at how it's going to hurt that board that you're on. Pulled it out. Next day, called me. He said, I oppose the bill, kill the bill. So I've learned you take care of everybody, not just the top people. Secretaries love me. There are guys up there making $500,000 a year. They can't figure out where I get all my information. So,
Turtle man.
thank you very much for having me.